mostly everyone on. I feel like people are going to be drifting on and off as time allows. You know, thank you all for being able to make it. Essentially, what we wanted to do here is just kind of have a, you know, local meeting with local resources and try to go through some tech updates. I don't know about you guys, but I'm at home. It looks like a lot of you guys are at home as well. So it's a good time, I guess, right now to take a little bit of time aside to catch up on some of the changes, some things that are happening. So we figured for the first one, we wanted to go over just some of the vSphere updates. vSphere 7 actually went GA this month. So we figured this would be a good time to review some of that stuff. And with that comes some enhancements to vSAN. I'm not going to be able to touch on everything because there was a lot of updates and some of them can get very detailed. But I just wanted to try to hit on some of the major ones and go from there. We have everyone currently muted on the phone. That is by design because I feel like as soon as we start asking questions with everyone on, it's going to be all over the place. Hopefully we don't take up the full hour. Maybe we could have some time for Q&A after if possible, but if not, I definitely encourage you to reach out to your data center sales executives and systems engineers to maybe have future conversations. After the meeting, I will send off an email with a deck to everyone on the call, and I will also be sending out a survey monkey. One is just to get your feedback on how you think this one went, and there'll be another one to see kind of what you guys want to see next. We'd like to try to do these things regularly, but we want to make sure that it is things that people are interested in, whether that's ransomware, Internet of Things, what have you, and we'll align resources appropriately. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nathan Fagundo. I am located right in the Holly Springs Apex area, right outside Raleigh, and I'm a local systems engineer. So, here we go. So I'm going to take a little bit of time again, just try to hit some of the main highlights of vSphere 7 and also VSAN 7 that comes along with that. Again, it went GA this month. I think about the 10th of this month, vSphere 7 went GA. So it's still relatively new and still have updates coming. For any of you that have VxRail right now, we're expecting vSphere 7 to be released for VxRail next month. It'll be about a 1-month lead time on that. Now, the biggest updates in vSphere and a lot of the things you're going to be seeing online is around Kubernetes and Kubernetes integration. Project specific was something that VMware was trying to create to try to give you Kubernetes functionality embedded right into vCenter. That way you could manage both your containers and your VMs simultaneously and kind of have that one pane of glass. And with vSphere 7, they've made that a reality. They've been able to integrate vSphere and Kubernetes, so that way you can use the same type of control plane functionalities that you use with your VMs as you would with your containers as well. So any of your policies, things like that, you'll be able to leverage as well. Now, there's certain business outcomes that come out of this as well. You know, the 4 main pillars that they're looking at is obviously vSphere with Kubernetes, faster deployment innovation, greater collaboration with test dev. vSphere Lifecycle Manager, which we'll talk about a little bit as well, helps with updates and being able to update certain aspects of vSphere from not only software, but also from a hardware level. There's been some enhancements around security and things like secure boot and TPM policies being able to work in line to help block out potential intrusion, and then application acceleration. Now, it wouldn't be an update presentation without some enhancements around maxes and minimums. Right? So we are able to have a number of more hosts under single sign-on. We've reduced latency overall across the board, and no, we can have more hosts under a single vCenter. I don't think anyone's really hitting these limits, but the maximums are continuously starting to grow and grow and grow. So server profiles. I don't know if any of you guys are currently using any REST APIs, but now they have the ability to list, export, validate, and import. vCenter server policies can now be consumed with any automation tool like Puppet, Chef, Ansible, and all these APIs can be found within the Developer Center under API Explorer. So just more enhancements around that. Content library. So this is pretty cool. So In the vSphere client, you can edit VM templates stored in the content library, as well as monitor the changes that have been made by other privileged users. You can perform a checkout operation to update a virtual machine from a VM template. So during this process, the VM is not available for checkout from other users, but can be deployed as a virtual machine from that template without any disruption. And it's the library idea, right? Being able to check out those templates. So after you check out a virtual machine from a template and update the virtual machine, you must convert that new virtual machine back to a VM template as a separate template. And then you can check in that VM to the template as well. So basically the way it works is if you check out that template, you can make any changes, but you have to save it as a different template. This means you keep the original template the same without anyone making any sort of adjustments. There's some new health monitoring that's been put in vSphere 7. There's some also in vSAN, which we'll talk about in the future as well. But Skyline Health is a proactive health monitoring, which tries to use analytics to try to figure out if there's any problems before they happen. vSphere is very good at sending alerts to errors as problems occur, but this is trying to get ahead of those things if it's able to tell if anything could go wrong. vSphere Lifecycle Manager. So at vSphere 7 launch, a cluster image can compromise the ESXi release, any vendor add-ons, and any firmware add-ons, which will allow vSphere Lifecycle Management or VLCM to communicate with a vendor provisioned firmware management tool, such as OpenManage for any of you Dell PowerEdge customers out there. You can use OpenManage integration for VMware, and HPE is going to be the other partner at launch. So configuration management is still being fully worked on, so you'll be able to have these and deploy them. But as far as some of the management will be coming in update 1. That's kind of like what we're looking at here. So when it comes out, it's going to be able to check the upgrades of the host's entire firmware. I mentioned initially that when you do updates, it's now going to have some ability to do a little bit on the hardware level, and this is kind of what we're looking at there. So Lifecycle Manager will interact with the supported vendors' management tools, like, again, Dell OpenManage and HPE OneView. It will actually check the VMware compatibility guide automatically to ensure that you're running the recommended versions of firmware and drivers and all that good stuff. And it'll have full REST API interfaces available as well. vSphere Server Update Planner is going to be a native tool that'll help you plan, discover, and upgrade environments successfully. Again, just more of those pre-checks and validation type stuff before you actually do an update. The nice thing is you'll be able to do kind of a what if. So instead of testing, putting out an update in test dev or something like that to see if it works, and then having to roll it back or anything like that, you can actually do simulated updates to see if it's going to break anything before it does. Security. So certificate management was something that was fairly complex in vSphere 6.7. There was a lot of certificates that you could potentially manage outside of the VMware Certificate Authority. So sometimes it could be a bit complicated to reissue and replace all of them at both vCenter server and ESXi levels. So we've kind of consolidated that a little bit in vSphere 7. It does away with most of the complexity. vSphere server has a much simpler approach now, managing solutions differently. ESXi has been simplified as well, so that the services use common certificate versus having one for each of them. Also in line with security, there's been some updates around, I'm so bad at this word, I'm so dyslexic with this, Attestation, right? So hosts that have a trusted platform module or TPM and have secure boot enabled can record metrics about the boot process and get configuration reports from vCenter server. That verifies which of the metrics match and which don't exactly match or are as desired. That process of kind of the checks and balances is what VMware calls Attestation. Now, the problem is in vSphere 6.7 is that not much happens when a host is in an unworthy state, right? It throws a bunch of alarms, but a security sensitive workload can still run on that host. So now we're able to actually set up some checks and balances by using a dedicated cluster that can function as that association manager or vSphere trusted authority, which can work in conjunction with the TPM module and Secure Boot to make sure that no unsecured workloads are able to run on those. One thing just to note, though, is that this does require TPM 2.5, which is an option and pretty much I see on most PowerEdge 15G options and 14G. So VSGX. So if an application has a secret, like an encryption key or a location of a secret base, that secret is in a traditional VMware environment is seen by the hypervisor, as well as stored in memory and obviously the CPUs, right? So now what the idea is, well, what if we could eliminate at least the guest operating system and the hypervisor? You know, that's a big piece of it right there. So Intel's Software Guard extension is a new offering that allows applications to conspire with the CPU to keep secrets from the guest operating system and the hypervisor. Some applications can start using this functionality in vSphere 7, but you need to have at least VMware tools or version 17 running. Some application acceleration updates. The biggest one here is just around DRS. So at the top, you see kind of traditional DRS, as we all know and love, and underneath it, you see the new version of DRS as it has been deployed in vSphere 7. So DRS used to focus on just the cluster state, checking to see if it needs to be balancing, and it would make certain recommendations. If you had it for full automation, it would move things around. But the new DRS takes a different approach. It computes a VM's DRS score on the host to move VMs to a host that provides the highest VM DRS score. So the biggest difference between old DRS version and the new one is that it no longer balances host load. It cares less about that. It cares more about VM resources and VM performance, right? So instead of focusing on the host, now focusing on the VM. An important note to mention for DRS is that it now runs every single minute. This provides for more granular calculation for our workload balancing that we didn't use beforehand. So overall, there should be much better performance and much better workload utilization. Assignable hardware is a framework that was developed to extend support for vSphere features when customers utilize hardware accelerations, think GPUs, right? This now introduces in vSphere DRS an initial placement, and vSphere HA supports VMs equipped with the pass-through PCIe device for like NVIDIA vGPUs and things like that. So now DRS is going to take a lot of them into consideration as well. Before you could set affinity and anti-affinity rules, but that just was restricting it. It didn't really help with load balancing across GPUs or utilization, anything like that. vMotion improvements. So as DRS has changed as well, we obviously changed a little bit of vMotion to, again, just be a little bit more efficient and to take a look at VM scores as well in workload placement. PDP, so this is an alternative to NTP for time management. So PDP is something that we've actually had certain financial firms asking for because they need to have VM sub-millisecond time accuracy. So this way, you can switch your ESXi host from NTP to PTP, and this will allow low latency precision clockwork on each of the hosts to align them to, again, sub-millisecond accuracy. So you need to have VMware hardware 17 for this, as well as PDP clock sources on your network for ESXi to receive the time from. So it's not going to be something for everyone, but it is kind of a cool feature there. All right, vSAN. So just some general vSAN updates that are coming down the line. A lot of these align to some of those Kubernetes offerings that we're going to be offering in vSphere 7. So the biggest one in my opinion, is the support for file. So you notice up there you have traditional VMs, just your normal VMBKs, object-based storage for vSAN, file services. So we have the ability to create NFS version 4.1 and version 3 protocols directly from vSAN and cloud native storage. That's using like the CSI plugin and everything with Kubernetes. Have a little bit of that over here. So again, the file service is only right now for NFS 4.1 and 3, and the block storage is only for iSCSI. If you're doing clustering and things like that, you can actually create an iSCSI target directly on vSAN. The advantage here is that now you can leverage your vSAN storage policies for those different workloads as well. So just like how you can set storage policies per VM, you can now do that on the file side as well. Again, a lot of this is to support some of those next-gen applications that we talked about. Okay, so we now have some new management tools for containers, obviously. So we have Kubernetes for the compute side, but now we need to make sure that we can monitor and manage that stuff from storage side in vSAN. So you can actually, there's a new tab there under Cloud Native to see all of your different container volumes for Kubernetes. Yeah. You'll be able to get certain information from it from both a Kubernetes level and then obviously a vSAN level. Like you can see there, like the compliancy levels, the default storage policy, et cetera, et cetera. So you can take a look at any of the object health and make the adjustments if necessary. And you can, again, change that if need be. So you could change the storage policy from mirroring FTP of 1 to, ratio coding or RAID 5, FTP of 1, or what have you, to get more or less capacity, more or less performance, however you need it. The nice thing with, again, using vSAN for any of your containers is that you can take advantage of any vSAN data protection. So when we talk about site-to-site protection, whether you're using recovery point for virtual machines, whether you're using a vSphere replicator with a site recovery manager, or whether you're using stretch clustering for vSAN, now those containers can take advantage of that protection as well, and vSAN can make sure to protect those across sites. And vSphere replication can do down to about 5-minute RPO. I think it used to be about 15 minutes. So that got a little enhanced as well. We have some real-time health monitoring for vSAN clusters. And there's also going to be some predictive analytics we're going to talk about as well. But again, just trying to use that new Skyline health offering to be more predictive. Some things. So. Lifecycle management. So beforehand, whenever you used Update Manager or anything like that, it had no sort of ability to update any hardware. As mentioned before, some of that has changed. Before, I think the most it could do is update like the HBA or something like that. So now Update Manager is able to update features such as drivers, some BIOS updates, NIC firmware, et cetera, just to kind of, again, help align things to VMware's compatibility matrix. So, and again, over here, checks all that in real time, so as things change and adapt. Again, the only two vendor plugins supported right now is HPE and us. VMware now has beefed up some of their dial home capabilities. So, traditionally, whenever you have an issue that dials home, it can send just basic configuration information. Now it's going to actually send back some performance information as well to help monitor some of that stuff as well, to help do some real-time detection of any sort of issues or problems coming up. It is, I will say, from GA, it looks like it's going to be very simple. If any of you have ever used VxRail ACE, VxReality seems like it's at least 6 months ahead of this and constantly improving. So, but it'll be good to have both options in there to compare and contrast. The nice thing with this is, again, it falls into dial home and everything else. So if there is any issues, support will be able to take a look and offer any help in remediation. There's also capacity-based monitoring as well, here. So as far as figuring out not just how performance is going and making those changes, but we also are going to be making some updates around capacity for helping with capacity planning. It's going to be able to take a look at your DDoP compression savings from history. So maybe your DDoP compression went from 2 to 1 to 1.5 to 1 to 3 to 1, what have you, and be able to give you some of that stuff in the talent. But it can also help with capacity planning as far as figuring out when you're going to run out of capacity at certain growth rates. And again, all we're doing here is we're applying analytics into log files and things like that that beforehand were collected, but didn't really do anything with. So, and that's all I had for the major updates. I knew that originally we had this thing planned for half an hour, so tried to get through some of the main ones. Something that I want to leave you guys with as well is just, if you are running vSphere 6, not 6.5, not 6.7, but 6, that actually went into support on the 12th of this month. And strategically, VMware released vSphere 7.0 the 10th of this month. It was 2 days before vSphere 6 went into support. So if you are on an older version of vSphere, now might be a good time to look at updating, maybe to even 6.7, honestly, is my favorite update so far. A lot of the enhancements around getting everything to the HTML5 GUI from Flash, performance enhancements and everything across the board have been great. 7.0 is it's a major release, right? There's a bunch of changes coming. Some of them will be slated for update 1, which I don't have a date on that yet. But I would definitely encourage you to start taking a look at this and maybe playing around with it with VMware's hands-on labs. So I'll be sending this out to everyone as well. And again, please fill out the survey. Let us know if there's anything that you'd like to see changed or added, or if there's anything that specifically you want us to review next time. We have a bunch of different offerings in there, and we can make any customizations people want.
Thanks, Nate.
No problem.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah.
Quick question. When will vSphere 7.0 be available for VxRail?
This time next month is what we heard. So probably in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What's today's date? Yeah, probably the next 2 weeks or so. That's at least what we were told. I think they were originally trying to align it right before Dell Technology World, which many of you guys are familiar with. That is actually going to be remote. It's been pushed to October, and it's going to be remote and available for all customers. So anyone who's got tickets, you'll be able to use them next year for next year's Dell Technology World. But with COVID-19, we've had to make some changes to there. But I think they were originally trying to plan it right before that to make a big thing for it.
Appreciate it.
Any other general questions before we get kicked off? Again, if there's anything specifically that people want to ask or they don't want to ask it in the big forum, I mean, I'll send an email out there. You'll have my email address. You can also reach out to your local DCSEs and your local SEs to go over some of the stuff more in depth. Any general questions before we get up? I know we've got some time left. All right. Well, I appreciate you all being able to jump on. I hope you guys all have a great rest of the day, and be safe out there.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Take it easy.
See ya.
Yeah.